Okay, I'll call today's Finance Committee meeting at July 21st at 5:33 p.m. All 5 members are present. Number 2, review and approve minutes. Finance Committee minutes from July 7th. Mr. Lampy,
I would move to approve those minutes.
a motion by Lampy, second by Davis. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Thank you. I did put a spot here for public comment. If anybody here wishes to speak, anything on the agenda, give you up to 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Tim Hayden. I'm on remoting in. And,
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Hayden.
Yeah, I just wanted to share some comments and concerns that I have in relation to the study done by McGrath. I know the Finance Committee has had several meetings where they've gotten more detail about the study and some of the recommendations McGrath has given to the city. And I've listened to some of the comments from the committee members at these meetings, and they've been asked to give some guidance to the finance director on, which way they intend to go with the study, if they plan to implement it, and if so, at what level. Like there's a grade or option 1, option 2. I guess I just want to really reiterate the importance of this study and how it's going to aid in not only retention of our current employees, but also attracting new and qualified employees. In my 3 years that I've worked for the city, in my department alone, we've had 2 employees that were amazing employees that we had invested years and time and energy and money into training, only to have them moved to different communities for additional pay, doing this essentially the same tasks. This same exact thing just happened with the city's attorney, who got an offer from another neighboring community for more money. I think I'd like to ask that the closing, I'd like to ask that the Finance Committee challenge the finance director and the department heads to provide them with a list of services or other things in the budget for 2026 that could be either cut or suspended or something, to find the money needed to at least implement option 1. It's like I said, we're losing employees to other communities that we've spent time and energy and training, and I'd hate for that to continue. And that's why I think it's important that we be tasked with providing the Finance Committee with tools that they could use to get this into the budget. So that's what I wanted to share. I appreciate the mayor adding this onto the Finance Committee, that we staff and citizens can comment on some of the items on the agenda at this committee, because I think they're important, and the citizens and the staff should be able to provide the committee with additional information or express their concerns. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hayden. Just wait. Do you have a comment for Mr. Hayden?
You know what, I didn't catch his background again on this. I appreciated his comments he made, but have him again clarify his background.
Oh yeah, sure. Sorry. So Tim Hayden, I'm the assistant director or assistant manager of the water and wastewater. And I was part of the team that helped McGrath with the study, like helping determine which communities were our comparables, and helped with creating the survey that went out to the employees to have them provide more information on exactly their tasks and job descriptions and things like that. So that is a little bit more on my background.
I remember. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
no problem.
Thank you, Mr. Hayden.
Yep.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, and now move on to number 4, business. A, review and take possible action hiring of city attorney candidate. So, our previous city attorney's last day was last week, Thursday. After he had given notice, Lisa had put on our website, and we had several candidates that applied, and we interviewed multiple candidates. This candidate stood out, has a lot of experience in city government, all facets of it. The person's also looking to relocate, has an interest to come closer to Watertown as well too. So the memo is pretty detailed. I would like to add that in light of it says there is step 3, and after having contact with her recently, I would like to amend that and make it a step 5. And also with her experience calls for 4 weeks of vacation, I'd like to move that to 5 weeks of vacation. Mr. Lampy.
Mayor, I understand the mechanism of converting the T3 to a T5, but how would we go about indicating the extra week of vacation?
Go ahead, Lisa. Yeah.
She had asked for that in the counter. She presented her current employer on Friday, her notice, and was countered to stay. So she asked for the 5 weeks of vacation in the step 5. Actually, she had asked for a step 6, but she was okay with the step 5 that the mayor had mentioned.
I'm not sure that answers my question. So as a finance committee, we're used to basically approving name for position at step. So, but I don't recall doing a vacation adjustment.
So if the handbook, the way it currently states, it takes the number of years as part of the prior service. We calculated that in and we came to the amount that was in the initial offer. And this would be outside of that calculation, which is just one of those other items is why the mayor has put it into his conversation this evening. It would be outside of what we typically do.
I think we've done it before. I have a question.
Ms. Davis, yes.
So in the memo where it says the position is budgeted for what has been offered, that is not accurate anymore. The memo has the T3.
Speaking of, so it would be in line with what the previous city attorney was making.
So is it budgeted? Is the amount in the budget?
T5 is what the city attorney is currently making.
And then how does that compare, just out of curiosity, with the McGrath study or the work study, the T5 for the attorney?
Completely different grading system. So if that's implemented, if we were to implement that smaller scaled one, it just moves the grades correctly. So whatever step we were to put this person now would have no bearing on that at the time until it's fully implemented.
But conceivably, if we were to implement that study in the next budget year, there would be another increase?
There would be, yes, this position is considerably lower compared to the market. So even taking this position up to the minimum, I believe it was about $130,000 as a minimum.
But in comparison to this pay schedule at Fond du Lac for the position she's vacating, it is an increase.
It would be an increase for her compared to what she's been countered at Fond du Lac.
Lisa, again, so what is that T5 equate into the hourly? What is that number?
5388.
And the weeks of vacation, are they effective after a probationary period? When would she be effective or be available for using vacation time?
Her vacation time would be prorated from when the date that she starts to the end of the year. So she'd be able to use part of that vacation, but not all of it.
Calendar year allocation, so, right?
Correct.
You have about 2 weeks for this calendar year.
And that it shows on experience, is that what she's got? Is this 9 years of, is that the experience that we're looking at? Or I can't quite read the note on there where it says, is it 12.9 or what is that?
She had about 9 years, yes. She's worked previously in West Bend and in Fond du Lac.
Both were municipal settings.
Correct.
And she has a lot of experience.
Can you pronounce her name?
No.
I heard her on a voicemail.
I
It's,
can spell it, but no,
she-
Have to learn that.
we just go by her shortened first name is easier right now. Yeah,
Panagopoulos.
so it, they countered with the amount that we had first offered, so I think going from step 3 to step 5 will take care of it. Ms. Davis?
I was just gonna make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the proposed city attorney at T5 with, is it 1 additional week of vacation or with 2 additional?
I thought she was at, what's 1 additional, right? Was she at 4?
The tier that she would be earning in is the 16-year plus tier. So
So how many additional weeks?
she's currently in the middle tier, so it would be, she would be given 4 weeks in the middle tier. So she would be given 1 additional week if she were in the top tier.
One additional week.
Additional week beyond what's in the tier.
Okay, so we have a motion for step 5 with 1 additional week of vacation. Second by Lampy. Okay, any further discussion? Mr. Smith?
Could you tell me how the negotiations went? Sounds like there was an initial advertisement. Was there not at that time a specification of the pay grade and step?
So I
At
believe,
that time, in other words, this individual responded to an advertisement for a specific pay grade and step. Was the vacation amount also specified in the advertisement?
No,
the advertisement, no, the wage was, it went from whatever the step 1 was to step 6, I believe, is what was advertised. We gave her kind of offering more in the middle. And then when she was given on her previous job, we said counter, that's where it came in late that maybe we should go a little bit on the higher end. So what the highest amount on the website showed was the step 6. We're still not quite offering her the highest on the website, just a little bit lower than that.
Okay,
Does that
so
help?
then after there was the evaluation and a determination to make a job offer to this person,
Mhm.
I presume at that point in time, the city made a specific offer.
After the,
In other words, when you contacted this person and said, we would like to offer you this position,
that was at step
what,
3.
at that point, there was a specific grade and step that was offered.
Correct.
And in the course of that initial offer, was there a vacation amount?
4 weeks would have been the offer originally,
So originally it was 4.
right? And then
So at that point, how did the discussion go?
when she contacted back at the city and her job countered it, we're just trying to making sure that she has the same type of offer that was offered at her previous job. I said that correctly.
Previous or current job?
Current job, I guess.
So they wanted her back. They wanted to keep her and they improved the terms to keep her. and
Right.
That's what led us to.
To want to make sure that
We
she's
improved our-
happy being here, yes.
Okay, and so to meet the revised pay offer by Fond du Lac, we are increasing the proposed offer from the pay grade by two
2 steps.
steps. Okay, and that equals or exceeds the amount that Fond du Lac was prepared to pay?
I believe exceeds a little bit now, yes.
All right, and at what point in time did the vacation topic come up? Is she currently making 5 weeks, or does she currently receive 5 weeks at Fond du Lac?
She's currently receiving 4 at Fond du Lac.
4 at Fond du Lac?
Mhm.
And our offer was 4, and the norm that would be offered was 4 weeks?
Mhm. And she asked for 5.
I was gonna say that these are all signs of a good attorney, the negotiating.
Probably,
Yeah.
it's probably a good sign that she's pretty good at what she does. And they don't want to lose her, so neither do I.
You've met with her and you feel strong about it.
Yeah, I talked to her on the phone and just met her briefly, well, interviewed over computer. But yeah, she came here and I met her in person.
Cheesebro talked to her?
He interviewed her, yeah. Mr. Lampe.
Chief Brower is also glad with the amount of,
Court experience. She's
Mayor,
been-
I was just going to say, but I'm okay with reaching a little bit because I don't want to see the city attorney's position remain vacant.
Who else in the city receives 5 weeks vacation? And what is the amount of time in service necessary for that to occur normally?
16 years plus private and public sector, and it can be verified utilizing WRS. And that's how we would determine if people have the 16 years, and that's for salary. So there are individuals that have more than 16 years of service when they come to us.
So normally the starting point would be for somebody with 16 years or more service,
For 5 weeks of vacation.
5 weeks. Okay, and what is the basis for the request of 5 weeks? If she wasn't making 5 weeks at the current employment, it is substantially more than a person with 9 years' experience would make here. What is the justification in her request for 5 weeks?
Job she has now is 4 weeks. So I think that was her justification to be able to come on over here.
4 weeks, yes.
She's 4 weeks now, so that was to be able for her to leave the current job and come over to Watertown to increase it a little bit. The same as the wage going up a little bit.
She has 9 years though of actual experience.
This is correct. So we want based on our years of experience, we should be in just 4 weeks of vacation.
And I mean, I think Fred's bringing the point that it's a precedent, you're doing it, and is there good, you want the employee, I can tell. But in the end, you're changing some of the terms that we typically give out, and it's being made available going into the job. She's not waiting for it, she's gonna get that up front, prorated for the year that she's in.
So she get about two more days this calendar year, yes. Ms. Davis?
Lisa, do we have precedent of hiring someone and providing extra vacation above what they are due on the table?
Yes, but we don't typically bring them to the finance committee. I can't give you the list. My
But
memory's not that great.
this is part of the negotiating.
It is part of the negotiation, yes.
And it's probably becoming more frequent as people are moving and changing jobs, that they don't want to lose their vacation.
Yes, and it's best to do it now. This is the best time to do it if they need those conversations before they're in a year or two and perhaps there's another municipality that knocks on their door.
You know what, you can see both sides of the story, but, the individual could come here, prove herself in a year or so of experience and make the case, through our mayor at any point in time based on being here. And it would be quite, it'd be more convincing. We haven't seen anything from the individual other than the fact that she appears to be, a fine individual for hiring. I think you can go either way on it.
I guess my concern is not individually specific to the qualifications of this individual. It may very well be that this is an extraordinary individual, and there are a number of other considerations that would suggest that it would be wise to take the steps necessary to have this person come into our employ. I guess my greatest concern is, what about the individuals that have worked here up through the period of their current employment, are progressing with vacation under the normal process, and are not at 16 years yet, and are getting, perhaps they're more than 9 years, and they're getting 4 weeks vacation. I think when you hire from the outside, there's obviously the tension of what it is necessary to bring that person here. But we also have the precedent of what we are sending as a message to the people who have faithfully been here, maybe from an original hire up through the number of years of longevity they have, and are possibly at this point more than 9 years and making less vacation time than somebody that is coming in and being encouraged to come with that type of increased benefit. What it just seems to me to be a precedent that is going to be interpreted by individuals in the circumstances I just described as that we have a greater concern for new hires than we have for people that have been here for a long period of time. And I can see the pay issue being determined, or at least exceeded to, based upon background and experience, and there's flexibility in the pay plan for that. But okay, my question is, do we have any precedent for somebody with a new hire who's coming in from the outside that is requesting more vacation than their time would otherwise merit? Have we otherwise done this to other or for other new hires?
Yes. I'm
Yep.
trying to pull up not our current IT coordinator, but our IT coordinator prior to that would be one of those situations. Without having the offer letter right in front of me, I can't give you specifics beyond that.
I can think of something in the police department where we did that.
We
This
did that.
this committee has done this before. There's precedent. It seems to be part of the negotiations these days.
Sick leave benefits is another thing that has been something that has come up recently with one of our police dispatchers.
And I don't even see this on vacation days. I would think it'd be very difficult for an attorney in the city of Watertown to take 5 weeks of vacation. This is more, I would say, just a benefit on the back end, I would think. I could be wrong about that, though. It's,
We have at least two examples you mentioned just now.
Mhm.
So in the normal course of things, a person in this circumstance would come to work for the city at 9 years of experience and would wait 7 additional years to qualify for 5 weeks vacation. Was there any discussion about that being an incentive for excellent performance evaluations for a certain period of time?
We don't typically do that.
Excuse me?
We don't have that process at this time to give benefits for performance, not vacation based like that. You're talking about like after they pass a
I'm
probationary
saying that
period.
it could be a contingent incentive if the individual served for a certain period of time with the type of credible service that would merit that kind of an addition for the vacation.
It was the request by the individual. We put it forward to the finance committee, for consideration. It is outside of our typical structure, and that's all that I have to provide on that.
Ms. Davis, did you have?
no.
Okay.
So there's a motion on the table right now.
The motion for moving to a step 5 and adding an extra week of vacation. So if nothing else, I'll take a roll. Okay, Davis,
I,
Lampy, Berg,
No.
Smith.
Gee, I am sorry we went to a vote so soon. I was sitting here trying to ponder an amendment for this issue of vacation. So under the circumstances, I'll say no.
Okay. I vote yes.
And I think the reflection is not on her, it's just on the policy and the way we want to try to handle people coming in. So I think that needs to be passed on to that new employee of ours, hopefully, that I'm sure both of us have high regard for her from what we've heard, but we like to stick with our policy as much as we can, and we feel it doesn't warrant that.
Very good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, move on to B then. Review and take action collateral assignment of TIF for Lumen Terrace LLC.
Thank you. What's before you tonight is just a request by the developer Lumen Terrace LLC. It was actually a request of Associated Bank, the institution they're working with for their lending for the Lumen Terrace project. This is pretty straightforward. It was reviewed by Attorney Cheesebro. It basically just says that the obligations of the developer under this development have not changed. The city would not be under any additional obligations or anything like that, any additional financial commitment. Scott Kwasinski from Horizon is online if you have any questions.
Yeah.
There's no changes?
No changes. I'm pulling up the acknowledgement and consent. This is stating that, that to the city's knowledge, we are not in litigation with the developer or proposing to or considering litigation with the developer. The developer is not currently in default of the development agreement. And basically what it boils down to is if something would happen to Lumen Terrace LLC, they couldn't just assign the TIF payments to a different entity without the city's permission.
And I was not on the council at the time this was worked out, but I'm deferring to the finance committee and the council that they put together the package that appeared to be what was needed.
Yes, this basically is just giving assurance to the lender that they're working with, that, you know, they're not in default and that, you know, they wouldn't be able to assign the TIF payments to somebody else without our permission.
I'll just make a motion to approve the collateral assignment of TIF for Lumen Terrace LLC.
Okay. Motion by Davis.
Second.
Okay, second by Berg. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, Davis, Lampy,
Aye.
Berg,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
aye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
C, review and update Water Department 2025 private lead service line project.
Okay, thank you. I did provide a summary. What we wanted to do tonight was provide an update to this committee as the members here are not the same that we have on the Public Works Commission. And we actually have this project dating back to 2023, where we replaced 102 services back in 2023. And at that time, the safe drinking water loan that we had received the past 2 years, the state ran out of money for that loan program. So we met with the Public Works Commission during that time, and in 2024 in May, the Public Works Commission was given the update, and they chose for us to do an entire citywide lead service replacement program and apply for the new funding source through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Loan Program, which is administered through the DNR. So that took us through 24 in the application, and end of 24 when we saw the rankings. And then in December, Public Works Commission was presented the findings of our scoring, and that we scored very well. And we had 4 different project areas, which was a census tract breakout to try and maximize the funding. And so that's what we did. And the commission agreed, and with the census tract breakout that we had presented, and more recently, in April, we awarded the project to 5 Star Energy. So we're about to begin soon, as we meet with our contractor in September, to start this project. And after all of this has taken place, we've been working with the DNR about the loan. And we came to realize that after several meetings that there's some differences that are pretty significant with this particular program and how the funding is being allocated because of the difference in principal forgiveness on the census tracts. There's a portion that have 75% principal forgiveness, about approximately 230 private side homes. 398 have about 50% principal forgiveness. And there's a large tract of 419 that is 100%. And those are based on median household incomes within the city. There's another 440 that the city has on the public side. The city was eligible for 10% principal forgiveness. So as we started talking more with the DNR, we got Mark Stevens involved, as our finance director. He was keen to point out this committee needs to be aware that 4 separate financial assistance agreements are coming to the Common Council for approval to adopt by resolution in order to close the loans. All of those need to be approved by the city of Watertown. In addition to that, it cannot be the water utility that is administering this program, it needs to be the city. So there are some things that are different in the sense that the non-principal forgiveness portions of the project and those homeowners, according to our ordinance, there is a contribution that they have to pay for that service. It's not 100% of it, it's a portion of it, as all the projects got some principal forgiveness. But what is different here is that we need to do a revenue pledge. And I think I'm about to turn it over to Mark so that I don't start talking about things that I don't completely understand. Unless there are any questions up to this point regarding the history of it and where we're at, I think it's time to talk a little bit more about what are the differences in these financial assistance agreements.
Pete, are you talking about individual property owner contribution?
Yes,
Yeah.
Mr. Lampy.
So the packet we were provided, we have information, for example, on page 23, where we have a lot of pink text, and it looks like those are the ones that apply a specific principal forgiveness to a specific project number. The part I think is a little obscured here is which of those project numbers pertains to the number of properties affected and what that would look like geographically. Is there a lookup or a reference we have for that?
the best reference we have is if you go on our website onto the Get the Let Out storybook. All the homes in Watertown are on there, and each service that is led will be red. There's a circle. Left side is private, right side is public. So the census tracts were pulled out of there, out of our citywide materials inventory, we call it. So if you want to see just those census tracts, I could provide that on that storybook. I would have to work with our consultant to show you a light up, and basically it would light those up for you. Right now, you're not going to understand where they are. We have a separate map that went along with the project, and then is in the contract. It's rather large because it is a citywide map. But I do have those, not with me tonight, but they are available for you to look at. I apologize, I didn't bring the whole packet, the contract with me, but it is in the contract that we signed with Five Star Energy, a breakout of the map and these census tracts, and you can see where these homes are.
So in the Get the Let Out site, is there enough information to tie that back to the project number, or does it just show the calculated?
It shows all the services and if it's let or not. So I could add that on the storybook so that you could see where these particular homes are. We do have that map, it's just not overlaid into that storybook. And I don't know if Andrew has a copy of that contract. I don't think so, because I believe they're all on my desk in my office.
Okay, so the numbers you're providing tonight, like the 440, the 419, and the 398, those are summaries of that
Total-
information.
Yes, total number. To put a dot on where those are, we do have that map. It's not electronically available for you tonight.
Okay, yeah, I definitely want to see that.
Just updating it. Anybody else have questions? No. Okay, thank you, Pete.
Was Mark gonna make some
Oh,
comment?
Be glad to. This project is a 3-year project that would start this September with the approval. And the intent of the water department would be to start with those projects that are 100% to be forgiven. So those that are going to see a private-public combination with a percent of sharing is not going to be something that is in the first string of projects. We'll work to secure all of the work that is going to be 100% forgiven first in the pecking order of what gets done first, second, and third, and so on. The work, when we get to a point of having to pay for some of it, just to bring to your attention that there's a pot of money that US gave to the state, and the state's Department of Administration is where that money is lodged. The DNR would be the approving body. The process that we worked out in our heads, Pete and I, and Andrew, the work gets completed. Then the bill has to be submitted to the DNR. The DNR signs off on that, giving approval that yes, everything has been done that needs to be done. Then the DNR approval is given to the DOA. The DOA issues us money, loan money, to help us then turn around and reimburse the draw request of the contractor. So the contractor's already, what's the name? Three stars, 5 stars?
Five-Star Energy.
5-Star Energy would be securing their money at that point in time once the DNR signs off on it. It is at that point in time that the DOA is initiating a loan with us. This is referred to as a general obligation loan. And so a week or so ago, in thinking GO, that's what we usually do on an annual basis, I had Brad from Baird included in a conversation with both DNR and DOA administration personnel. And those staff went through and tried to explain to us the understanding of what we now get a better picture of that we didn't get during that phone conversation. And that is that we're not going to the public market to secure a bond for any of the money that is going to need to be loaned. Instead, the general obligation is between City of Watertown and the State of Wisconsin DOA. That money, unlike what we're accustomed to doing, when we borrow money on an annual basis, we get a lump sum total of money. In this, in contrast, we get the amount of money that we ask for after the reimbursement. So if the first draw is, for the sake of an example, $250,000, then we would submit our invoice that we would have from the 5-Star company, and we would submit that to DNR. DNR would approve, pass it on to DOA. DOA would send us the money, and the same day that we secure that money through wire transfer is the same day we would release the check to the contractor. So there's no delay, if you will. They'll get paid when we get reimbursed for that amount of time. That sum, that loan that is now secured then, depending on is it forgiven or not, if obviously it's a forgiven loan, then there's no interest. It's a forgiven loan. And so that's why, again, we would want to start with the addresses that are 100% to be forgiven. Then there is no cost to us. It's just the logistics of getting it paid for it. At some point in the future then, there would be a sum of money when we get to the portion where we are sharing, some is forgiven and some is not. Then that sum of money, when we take it, accepting it from the DOA interest rate to us is only a whopping 0.25%. So it's by far the lowest interest rate that we could, in any period of time, borrow money for that. Now, obviously, one of the missing pieces that needs to be determined is at what percentage will we share the cost to the private homeowner as to how much they are going to need to pay towards the private side. 100% of the public side obviously is not borne by that parcel owner, but it's a matter then of trying to figure out what percent it is at that time. One of the, they send us a bunch of paperwork here. Page 19, 2021, 22 might be the easiest one for you to kind of guide your eyes on. This would be one where it's the highest amount of a loan with the smallest percentage of sharing. Okay, so this is going to be the one that costs us the most out of the 4 different kinds of products that we've got. And on page 21 and 22, page 22 probably is the easiest. You can see if we borrow the full 2.863 million, I'm looking at the bottom of column 1 on page 22 in your packet. If we do everything that we need to do, and by the way, this is US federal mandate that it has to be done in the next 10 years. So we don't have an option, so we're going to spend the money, $2.86 million over 20 years. Look at your interest, only $80,000 for the total of borrowing over 20 years because of the extremely low interest rate of 0.25%. We couldn't beat this in any other way for the amount of money that is going to be borrowed, and yet it's going to cost us very little on the overall cost of doing business. And so it looks like in my estimate, my recommendation to Pete and Andrew earlier, that the 20-year term makes more sense. I had asked the departments to give us a 5-year, and that's what pages 23 and on is a different packet with a 5-year amortization on it, thinking that we would be able to spend out more of our money quicker. But in reality, because this is as low of an interest rate as it is, extending the period of time is not going to be costly, and at the same time does not impact what the water's cash reserves balance is, because it wouldn't be depleted as quickly as over 5 years. It's about $170,000 P&I schedule over that 20-year period of time.
I believe there's also it can be repaid early. We're not talking about that, but
There
there's
is no
no
prepayment
penalty.
penalties.
Right, but if the longer amortization schedule doesn't change the interest rate.
Correct. It's fixed for the full 20.
I know, I mean, that's a win-win times 10.
Hmm.
So, I mean, and plus how many property owners are projected to be benefited by the program that we would, if we do the full intent?
The full intent, we have, well, including our public side, 1,480 some private services or lead services to replace it.
I can't believe.
So it's around 1,000 private homeowners. Of that 1,400 and some are also public for full service. So
So. I mean, it's a great thing because we're taking away potential liability issues that are there for property owners that are impacted by the older type of lead-based paint or the lead-based pipe. And I just think we're fortunate to have the program, and I'm thankful for you that you put this together, the two of you, to help make that happen.
Ms. Davis.
I assume this is going to be quite an administrative load on your staff. Do you have people lined up ready to go?
well, we're ready, as ready as we can be. This is a little bit different than what we're used to. But we're prepared as best we can. We've had several meetings, about it internally, and, it can be a bit of stress for us, and then it is time consuming, yes. But that's part of the deal we signed up for on our end here. We can make it work.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, Pete, thank you. Yeah. Okay, move on to D then. Review and discuss general fund income statement through June 2025.
Two of you are new to Finance Committee, so you've not seen this in your past. The second half of the fiscal year, I put together a summary of our general fund and how we are faring as an income statement. Again, this is very high level, obviously, because we're only looking at 2 pages. My detail is about 20 pages long, but it provides to you just a synopsis of where we are. I've given to you the last 3 years now of history next to it. Make sure you understand that the first 3 columns, when I say actual, is a 12-month period of time, not the same or equal amount of time as then what you look in the 4th year, which is the current year to date. So that is through the month of June that you're looking at. But then I've got then in the 5th column what the current year annual budget is, what the remaining balance in dollars is, and then what the percent of revenue or expense to its according budget that is there. So along the way, when I present these, I sometimes have comments to give to you, and I've got a few of those But then as well, so that you understand, on any month, feel free to throw questions back at me, and I'd be glad to then obviously do the research if I don't have it at the top of my tongue as to what that is. Okay, so some of the highlights that I bring to your attention today, at the bottom of page 40, the very bottom line, other general government expenses might have shouted out to you. The state did away with personal property tax this last year, and we had a number of personal property tax bills that had not been paid. And the state recommended that we do a write-off because effectively they weren't going to back any collections on something that they've done away with and all. And so most of the $15,000 was literally in 4 different properties. Again, when we talk about personal property, it's not the facility itself, it's the stuff, it's the materials, the equipment within these buildings. And this was mostly healthcare related. And so the 15,000 was a write-off that was approved back in February of this year. And again, 2 of you would have been a part of that, 2 of you would not have seen that. So that's why I bring that to your attention. On page 41, at the top is public safety, and the last row of public safety is emergency government. That relates to the tornado sirens in town. And we had some maintenance that has been deferred that we needed to play catch up on. And so this includes an annual service of the 9 sirens, but as well, we had greater than usual number of siren batteries that were replaced, 12 in total. And so the total was the 6147 number with a $5,100 budget. So over budget in that account. Then third category is public works, and about the 4th from the bottom is snow and ice control. And it looks high at 82.6%. In interacting with Stacy on it, though, we don't feel that this is out of line with where we usually are at this time. Typically, I looked back a couple of years, typically we have bought all of our salt for the year by the end of February into March. And she buys that last amount because it's a committed number of pounds. And the tonnage was such that it took us a little bit longer to have room for it this year. No problem on that. But we feel comfortable that even though it shows 82%, that is the cycle of the snow and ice control. It just looks higher than a 50% mark at this point in time. So those are the only comments that I provide to you. Open it up for any questions that you might have on what you are presented.
Mr. Lampy.
I just wanted to say, Mayor, I think that all makes sense.
Thank you, Mr. Lampy. Because you're usually so quiet there too. Okay,
I don't like to say nothing.
yeah. I don't want to rush, move on, or anybody want to look at it for a minute? Fred, Ken, you okay? You all right, Mr. Smith, we move on?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, E, review and discuss general direction for 2026 budget creation.
Bring to your attention page 42. And what I've done on page 42 and 43 is highlight in green anything that has been modified since the prior meeting. So nothing else outside of green has changed on this. Starting on page 42, just the highlight is in regards to health insurance premiums. We sought what we could from our broker. USI is that company. And what they reported to us is that Dean is seeing a trend at 8.6%. I asked the question, obviously, what do you got going on right now? July 1 is a common renewal date for school districts and the like. And so that was a positive for us to be able to get what the most recent Dean increases have been. So it's an 8.6% trend at this point in time. So I moved that what I had was a guess at 9% down to 8.6, okay? But I do it with a little bit of confidence behind it. And I want to give you a couple of other numbers so that you understand the comfort level of moving it down to 8.6. And admittedly, that's only a $10,000 swing, okay? So we're not talking big dollars. But in an interaction with with USI about our Dean, a couple of positives along the way. The claims history that we have are from January through April. We're new to them, obviously. But I've got the claims history totals from January through April with claims paid through June. So it's as up to date as we could get from them. And the positive is there is what is called a medical loss ratio. And the numerator and denominator are what are the total number of claims paid divided by premiums paid, okay, from us to them. And we're at 90.8%, which sounds like a high number, but the reality is if it's over 100%, they've lost money on us. And how dare an insurance company lose money on its client, right? The positive is anything less than 100%, they haven't lost any money on us and all. So that's point one. Point two is on the claims history, January, for whatever reason, was the highest of our months of claims, and it greatly reduced in February, March, and April. Now, my theory on this is this. If I'm at the end of my calendar year, October, November, December, and I have an elective surgery of any sort, and I haven't used my insurance for any purposes, I don't do it because it's sure enough going to hit my deductible at the end of the year, and I don't have any added value, if you will, because I don't have any time remaining. So I put it off and I elect that surgery to be done in January, because then look at that. I've got a whole 12 months in which to have used my deductible right away in January with whatever the elective thing is, and then still have value towards the rest of the year for anything that else is unknown or happens to come up. So I think in that perspective, that second point is a valid point that, yep, the month of January tends to be an expensive month for that kind of thing that many people do and shrug that off. But the fact that February, March, April have been much less in costs is a positive. And then the third and final that I bring to your attention is that they have in their reporting to us, one of their reports is a top 20 members with paid claims greater than $30,000, just to kind of give you a feel for where things are. And our top 20 list only has 6. So the positive is we don't have that many that are expensive claims that are in our system and all. So I don't have anything else to go off of at that point in time. This is a report that was done 2 weeks ago with Lisa and me. But I feel like, okay, I'm feeling like as time goes on, we should, if anything, be able to reduce that 8.6 to something less. But it shouldn't be the 9% at this point. Okay. That's it for page 42 that I bring to your attention. Let me just go through the other highlights on page 43. The June CPI was released last week, and it's not much different than what the prior month was. And again, remind you, that the state of Wisconsin's formula is an average of the averages. And so what is the average increase of CPI over the last 12 months? And so I literally have a schedule of now 10 of them, and I have to wait for July and August before it's finalized. But this is where it's landed. I didn't change the dollar amount for the expenditure restraint program assumption, but I just updated the fact that it's another month of CPI that's included, and it didn't modify the calculation of ERP. What I have done in here is suggesting an implementation of the McGrath pay study effective July 1. You asked me to interact with McGrath. Unfortunately, time did not allow our schedules to interact between last meeting and today. We have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow and all. So I don't have anything more than just my throw it on the piece of paper. And this would be, the 126 is half of the 252 is where that number is, okay? And then I did highlight the health insurance just because it was a slight reduction on the total there. Okay, so the modifications understood. So what I'm looking for discussion this evening, I've given to you two ideas that are below the line there, 721 discussion. If we were to move forward with option A, I am recommending that it can be done in two different ways, and I'll explain the two different ways, but this is the one I think that makes more sense. That we recommend to our departments a 0% increase in their budgets, that we need to concerted effort with all departments involved to make cuts in services and or staff to allow for $100,000 in required have-to increases. And let me explain the $100,000 first, and then I'll look at the math with you here. When I would relay to a department head a 0% increase, you can't increase your budget. The reality is there are some things that have to be increased, and I don't have a way to tell them, nope, nope, you can't, okay? So one of those things is the fact that our fire department was assumed to be 50% of the year. And so now we incorporate the second half of a year into a 26 budget that wasn't in 25. So that's one of the 4 items that I bring to your attention. 2, we assume that we'll probably have some expenditures for an indoor pool. That's not currently in the 25 budget, and so that would be in the 26 budget. 3, have you heard the water bills are going up? And guess what? We pay water bills too. And so the water bills are going to be an increase for the city of Watertown. And 4 and final is IT. And we understand that we have been short-sighted perhaps on how we've spent for underpaying or not having enough tools in the toolbox for IT. And so I don't know what all of that means. I'm just guessing that this is just Mark's guess that between those 4, we're looking at $100,000. Okay, so I think we're going to have to add $100,000, even if I tell department heads, don't raise your budget more than 0%. And we're going to have at least those 4 departments come back and say, oh, but I have to. And here's the reasons why. Okay, so in order to run the math so you can maybe see where my figures come from, if you look at the middle of the sheet, I say the difference of ERP minus additional comp expense, amount available for non-payroll expenses, and it was a negative $57,000. Okay? That negative $57,000 plus my $157,000, if you will, plugged number, then would provide for an additional $100,000 of we're going to have to increases in budgets. All right, that's the math behind why 157. It's just the plug number, okay, because that's what the top line equates to. This is one way of slicing it. Okay, the other way that I bring to your attention that I'm not as prone to be able to see happen is that all of this math would work out the same amount dollars wise if the response to our department heads was cut your budgets 3%. Across the board, cut it 3%. And the reality is, when you're buying maintenance agreements for $1,500, you can't call the company up and say, well, I can only pay 97% of the cost of this $1,500 maintenance agreement. It's kind of hard to do it in that fashion. And not all of our departments have a whole bunch of non-personnel costs to them and all. So we're only dealing with the non-personnel, the 25% that we might be able to do something with. Okay, so I'll stop there, see if there's any questions with that.
Happy.
Okay. It appears that page 42 really hasn't changed that much except for the adjustment on the health increase from 9 to 8.6, right?
Yes.
So that's a fantastic place to start. That one seems actually like that is probably not the meat of our discussion tonight. Once we move to 43 though, we're basically provided with two different strategies under option A and option B. And while I believe option B is something I could support because that does waive the expense restraint piece, I don't think we have anybody else on the finance committee that is willing to take a strong look at option B at the moment. And in option A, we have a proposal that requires us to delay implementation of the new pay table. But one of the options that I would have expected to see here is actually something that would have adopted the pay table and the normal schedule and understand what it would look like to essentially bite the bullet at the normal time where we would have adopted the pay table and see what that looks like next to option A. So that we have an idea of what that delay looks like next to the normal implementation of the pay table.
But just to understand though, that seems like that results in additional cuts that we would have to make to make that happen, right? To do it in the first of the year versus the middle of the year, we're gonna have additional cuts required to make that happen.
That is where not having a conversation with McGrath is where I'm not able to necessarily feel comfortable. I know where you're going because the obvious question that I had in my own mind is, so are we saying that nobody gets any increase between now and July? So on January 1, there is no increase of even 1% for anybody, because what are we going to do it off of? We could do it off of the existing pay table, obviously. $53,000 would be a 1% increase for that. And we've got, if you wanted to, get rid of the negative on this page, it's basically you've got about you've got 1% available. So give everybody a 1% raise, and that's, I think, your answer. If you wanted to implement something, you couldn't implement the McGrath study at a 1%. It doesn't work. There's not enough leeway to make it work. I'll get response tomorrow from her on that, but I truly believe the answer is you just throw everybody a 1% because there's not going to be enough fixing.
Well, what I'm concerned about as we're presented these options here is that the 1% option sounds like an option C. But the default option here that essentially chains up to the pink number on 42, doing that all at once, doesn't seem like that's presented to us as an option. So to answer a question like how much better is option A, where we delay the implementation of the pay table compared to just implementing it on the normal date, I'm not sure we have line of sight as to how much better option A would be in terms of reducing cuts than trying to implement the full amount on day one and then basically looking at a different series of cuts based on that.
Well, I'm not sure I'm following it, Jonathan, but I think the answer is $126,000 more dollars. That's the answer. Is the delay of 126 is the amount that you'd have to cut in addition.
Right.
Ms.
That-
Davis.
Does that make sense?
It does.
I don't want to cut off discussion on option A, but would love for you to go through option B and talk us through what you have there.
Okay. I realize there was communication in last meeting saying, no matter what you do, stick with the ERP, okay? And I hear you. I'm making an additional plea on behalf of our personnel. And here's the light of that plea, if you will, and that is, if we go back to the audit report that we received, the reality is that the year before us in '24 was projected to have a decrease, a loss of $750,000. And we had an increase of $700,000. We had a $1.4 million swing on that. With the assumption, when we built the budget, my original assumption at that time was that it looked like we were faring to be a zero increase decrease, okay? That back in October, November, we were not faring to lose $746,000. That my projection at that time was we'll break even. We're looking like we're at that point of breaking even. And so with that, we felt comfortable to influence the current year, 25's budget, with an influence of $993,000 on fund balance reductions, okay? So we knew we were gonna project to spend almost $1 million of our fund balance in the current year that we're in and all. And again, we're tracking fine on our budget currently. You saw the 6-month report right before this one. And also there's nothing that's outlandish. I think we're tracking where we need to be. See me in 3 months and I'll know for sure, you know, where those things are. But the reality is we have, instead of reducing our cash fund balance, $750,000, we increased it $695,000. More than an ERP of $400,000. So it's with that I'm presenting to you this approach. And I told the mayor, I said I wasn't gonna suggest an ERP elimination this year. It's his first year in his saddle. I thought that this was not the year to do it. I think that in the future, it's going to be an even more positive year because of the housing starts and the like. And also for those reasons, I did not do as much math as I'm presenting to you tonight. So here's option B. Utilize the positive growth that I just talked about. And what I'm talking about always is the unassigned fund balance. And if you go back to the report that the auditors give you, we have other parts of our fund balance. We've got $8.6 million total in our fund balance, but the unassigned grew from 6 million to 6,700,000. Okay, so using that amount of money, and you can see the 12/31/24 unassigned fund balance, 6.688 million. The 2024 expenditure budget is the 20,402,000 number. And so we're at 32.8. And this report of the auditors also gives us a good reminder that our fund balance policy says maintain an unassigned balance within a range of 20 to 30% of the annual budgeted expenditures with a targeted goal of 25%. Okay? So historically, over the last 5 years, we've been greater than our 30%, 31, 33, 32, 32, 33, and all. So we've lived greater than. In other words, we're living on cash that isn't doing us anything. It's sitting there. Robert asked the question of me, well, why can't we just use more cash? Yes, exactly. That's a good question, but I'm constrained by expenditure restraint to not increase our expenses, regardless of the amount of cash that's sitting in the bank. I can't spend it if I can't increase greater than whatever the expenditure restraint says I can. Okay? Just as a reminder. So we're at 32.8%. Estimated 12/31/25 unassigned fund balance at 5.694. Where's that number coming from? Well, remind us that we have projected in our 25 budget a cash budget reduction of $994,000 that's built into our budget. We plan on spending almost $1 million of our fund balance in the current year. So we got to recognize that. We've got to make sure that we keep track of that, obviously, right? And so I've got that on the sheet. If that holds true, which at this point, I have no reason to disbelieve that number, it's tracking where it needs to be, then that divided by our 25 expenditure budget is 27%. So it is reducing the 32 down to something within the target range of 20 to 30, all right? If we were then to waive the ERP, I have no guarantee as to what that dollar amount is. I only know what the current year's is and what the track record is. Over the last couple of years, it's been 430 in that range. This year it's 439, but I don't have a guarantee until it's announced to us, which is later in the year and all. So 439,000 would be a reduction on our fund balance of 2.1%. So the 27 minus 2, we'd be at 25%, right on target with that, okay? So with this, we're obviously not able to stay within the expenditure restraint because we would be spending more than the calculation totals, and I can't go beyond that. But this would be just, the ideas that come to my mind: waive the ERP for 26, still tell our departments you have a 0% increase in your budget assumption, allow the new pay table to be implemented as of January 1, still realizing that we've got about $100,000 of have-tos. Those haven't changed. This might provide for the addition of 1 or 2 positions, and the mayor has those in his mind as to what those might be. And then, there's a typo in that last line. My estimated 12/31/26 unassigned fund balance, this would be the stipulation to put to us as a staff when we're creating the budget, that our budget cannot then be less than the 20% to stay within that target range of a budget. And so that would be the least it could travel, so that there's still a containment on what our spending limit is. Now, as a reminder, we have 3 primary sources of money that pay for the bills. Tax levy is obviously on the list. Shared revenues and other sources of money, miscellaneous fees and the like, are on there. And then cash fund balance and all. And so it's between those 3 that we can juggle, literally, the decision as to how to afford it. So what I'm getting at is, this presentation doesn't automatically mean tax levy goes up, because what I'm attempting to do is tap into cash that already exists. And that's why, yes, there still needs to be limitations on the overall spend because we don't want to get out of target at the other end of the spectrum, the 20 to 30% range. But the hardship is just going back to trying to implement a new pay table, and I just not coming to an ability to see how we do our staff good with option A and all that. What we'd be saying is you go another 6 months without a raise, and at July 1, we're going to give you a small raise. At that point, it's not 3.71, it's half of that for the rest of the year.
One of
Yep.
the,
Ms. Davis.
Okay, in principle, I am in favor of expenditure restraint. And I was one of the 3 that said to you, please stay within expenditure restraint. But I have also been frustrated at the fact that sitting in the bank is taxpayer money that we have collected from them that we can't tap into or use because it takes us out of expenditure restraint. And so to me, that's a terrible thing that we have drawn this money from our taxpayers and are not using it. So I am curious and intrigued with an option B, because I would like to see us use that tax money that's been collected. So I have a question though. My first question is, remind us what the policy says about our fund balance. We're trying to stay between
20 to 30% of the unassigned cash fund balance in relation to the annual expenditure budget.
And so option B takes us to that 20%, the one that you've laid out here, or could take us to that 20%.
It could, and all, I'm suggesting that, okay, at this point, it's closer to 25%. But, yeah, so we talked about a couple of positions to give you a longer answer to your short question. So we've got a couple of positions that maybe we'd like to add. And so Robert's comment to me was, well, let's add them halfway into the year. We've done that approach, if you recall, with others and all. And at first blush, I said, oh yeah, exactly. That's how oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
No, in reality, it sounds crazy, but no, what we're needing to do if we say, let's put the ERP on hold for a year, is that we actually need to raise the base of our expenditures to get it up to a different level and then come back to expenditure restraint in the following year. So you want to spend it and all. If we implement new positions, there's really no value in us waiting, because then the expenditure restraint would be on a lesser amount.
And so then my last comment that I want to make, and I'm sure everyone will have things they want to say, is if we can keep, I would be willing to implement option B if the result is an increase of the general tax levy of hardly anything. If we can do option B and not increase taxes, or just increase taxes at a very, very minimum for our residents, then I can get on board option B.
Okay, go on, Mr. Berg.
one of the things that I've always been told with fund balance was to, when you do tap into it and use it, that you use it for one-time expenditures, things that are not a recurring type of expense, because that takes away from, the intent. And when you have increases that you want to build into your expenditure, those are recurring by definition, and they will be obviously there every year going forward. And that works against how you use fund balance money in principle, to not have it become a blessing one year, and then the following year or down the road, it becomes a negative, because those fund balance dollars are not going to get put in every year to cover that, what you agreed to. And that's why I've always been on the side. And just another, again, reminder, but it sticks in my head, because I know we took 400,000 to, at the time, fix a problem with our floor that we needed to do in order to satisfy, at the time, the fire department on their ability to have vehicles go into the fire department floor area. We did it. We used that, and we've had a lot of examples of doing that in a way, and I like that concept. I like adhering to it as much as I can. I've gone to council meetings where they did use, from what I could see, fund balance for recurring expenses that I thought were wrong. So that's one of the reasons why I'm still critical of it. And I know in the 6 years I've been off the council that there's been several positions added. I don't doubt the merit behind each of them, but I've never really been in a position yet to look critically at some of the positions that have been added in the last 6 years to know whether there's any area there where there's a savings in theory, either through a part-time versus full-time or in some other way making an adjustment. And I brought it up with our mayor, and he I know is going to create an executive budget for us in the next few months. And I don't know what's going to be in his proposed budget, but it may be a year too early for him to look critically at some of the positions we have approved in the last several years. So I'm receptive, in theory, to some of what you're trying to do, but my gut still tells me to say no.
You want to say something, Fred, or I can go?
Excuse me?
You had your hand up before, right?
Yes, one of the points that Alderman Berg was making at the end is one which is not included in any of the analysis that we've received as options. Specifically, we're looking at how can we control the increase, or how can we phase it in or deal with it in creative ways that allows us to maintain the ERP involvement. It seems to me that it would be which isn't to suggest any specific outcome, but I don't remember us specifically looking at each position in the city and trying to determine whether or not that is a position tied also to a consideration of whether or not it is a position furthering a program or an expense that we have a capacity to continue, which is to say, looking at all of the programming that we have, trying to determine whether or not there are cuts in areas of those programs, and trying to evaluate whether or not the savings could not be made from the reduction of personnel commensurate with the downsizing of some of the programming that currently is in place. I think that's the way that we would then be able to look at implementing the pay increases that are either going to be phased in or dealt with in some other way. In other words, a more expansive and creative look at expenditures within the general budget. And those are going to be found in areas of programming that we can look at the possibility of either cutting or downsizing or eliminating, and then determining what the impact of that approach would be on the need for specific personnel. That's something isn't even part of our discussion at this point in time. We looked at a previous, I thought it was kind of ironic, because we looked at a request for 11 new positions. and it's obvious that that's something that's not going to happen. But that seems to be the only approach that we take in terms of personnel. How many are we going to be able to afford to increase? That's all based on the notion that everything we do must continue exactly as it is currently structured, because that's what drives current personnel. And it seems to me that we at least owe it to the taxpayers of the city to carefully evaluate every program and the need for every single position in the city. Then I think we're going to be in a position to deal more fairly with the topic of compensation for employees that we have in the 2026 budget. Second point I would like to make is, if we're talking about using fund balance only in terms of how it is going to allow us to finesse the general budget and the challenges within the general budget, I believe it misses the greatest opportunity we've had in a long period of time, which is to use the fund balance for expenditures in unrestricted areas of expenditure, specifically the capital budget, where more along the lines of what was previously mentioned, the kinds of capital investments that are one-time expenditures. Talk to anybody in the city, and the single area of greatest dissatisfaction is the deplorable condition and the deteriorating condition of our city streets. This is the perfect opportunity to put more money into that in an unrestricted manner, not have to borrow for it, and use it for the kinds of one-time expenditures that will address what is probably the number one most obvious area of city need that is noted by all of our taxpayers as we move forward. So there are a variety of options that we have. The absolute last,
Sorry, Mr. Smith.
the last point I was going to make is I am not open-minded on the topic of walking away from the ERP this year. I think it is one of the biggest advantages we have to protect the taxpayers' interests in our city. We have made extraordinary efforts over continuing years to live within the constraints of the ERP. It provides a huge amount of revenue for the city in our budget, and it is the very influence that would cause us to say, hey, for the first time, how about we really look at programming what we consider to be indisputably necessary and what is something that we can consider in terms of whether it has a continuing need for the city. Private sector does that all the time. I don't remember the last time we had a comprehensive look at programming and staffing needs from the perspective of limitations. And if we walk away from the expenditure restraint program, we are losing the greatest single influence for fiscal responsibility that can serve our community and our taxpayers. So I'm not in favor of walking away, and that's why I'm definitely interested in trying to work within option A, but adding this topic of an across-the-board evaluation of programming and personnel.
Today I was with the police station at 7:15 for the change from third shift to first shift, at 3:45 from first shift to second shift. When the second shift started, two of the officers from first shift were doing 12-hour days today. And a couple of third shifters that were come in 4 hours early. They only had two second shift officers today. Both fire and police are working about 300 overtime hours every pay period. We haven't increased the police personnel since 1983. Numbers I looked at, but I spent a lot of time with the police department the last week or so. So my thoughts of new positions involve police and fire. I lost a student 3 years ago at a fire. And I think the number one job for government is protect its citizens. I'm with Miss Davis, just to know that I'm okay getting out of restraints for a year if it's to only use the fund balance for it. But I'm seeing the amount of overtime those guys are working on going downstairs and with Mr. Stevens' crew and Nikki, Sherry, and Chris, and seeing the numbers that they're pulling out right now and the amount of hours some of those guys are working, it can lead to burnout. So police and fire are my concern right now. And they haven't been increased for a long time, at least police. So, Mr. Berg.
Your point's well taken, Mayor Stocks, but just looking at the sheet on page 43, it's reminding me again that, whether it's wages versus personnel, I mean, we're talking about zero increases for now with our rank and file, but the police and fire, we've got in there 4% for increases, and that totals $320,000 of additional money needed to address that now. So, I mean, I know we can make the case for we need these personnel, but it always conflicts with wage increases, and so you can't have both. And I'm sympathetic to the need of personnel.
And one of those numbers is locked, the other one is not to be determined.
Well, once one is locked, the other one might as well be locked, because it's gonna invariably work in that same direction.
Yeah, okay. All right, there was no motion there, so unless somebody has something else to add on item E.
I would like to
Ms. Davis?
say that I am interested in doing a review of the staff and to see if we can cut in some areas, maybe reallocate in other areas. So I do think that's an important part of this process, and I agree with you that the study that we've done, it would seem that that should be part of it. I spoke of this when we had our professional that had come and speak to us last time about this. And I'll just say it again. She said that if you're going to have positions, you need to be able to pay them adequately. So that could mean that there are positions that we have that we can't afford because we can't afford to pay them adequately. But I would also say it would be interesting, Mr. Stevens, I don't know if this would be easy for you to do, to give us a look back over the last 3, 4, 5 years. How much of fund balance did we propose using, and how much did we actually end up using? Because I believe every single year we've come out ahead on fund balance, correct? In the last, at least since you've been.
Yeah, I can only talk about the four audits that I've been a part of. That is the correct answer.
Yes.
I know.
Okay. Mr. Smith, when you're requesting, is that something you want to see in a finance meeting soon? Review of all the personnel?
I'm sorry?
You were requesting to kind of look over the entire city personnel. Is that something you want to see at a finance meeting? Is that a request that way, or we just
think
do it internally?
Well, finance, at least in the sense of through the budget process, yes. And I have absolutely no problem in exempting public safety personnel, which is to say, I think your point was there were requested new personnel in those areas. And I would lots rather look and find an area of current expenditure which is nowhere near as important and staffed by personnel nowhere near as essential as the provision of public safety. And I think that it doesn't suggest that in looking at programming and looking at personnel, that we don't recognize that there are some that are underfunded and in need of increases. The problem is we don't look at the other side, which is programming that we could very well reduce or eliminate and accrue the benefits of the personnel savings in those areas to fund areas of higher priority. And I agree with you, which is that number one is public safety. But the bottom line of the entire budget is something that I think is essential that we keep in mind as we move forward.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Berg?
But, Mayor Smith, I'm sorry, Mayor Stocks, I'm not trying to put this onus on you necessarily in making the point I'm trying to make here, though. You have the executive budget that you are responsible for giving to us at a point in time. And you have potentially the ability to help make this happen through initiated changes in where you feel you can create savings to offset some of the proposed expenses that are being suggested here. So I mean, we could do it as a subcommittee if you want, but I mean, it's in theory, it seems like you can look at the entire budget over the next month or so and propose things back to our finance committee in a way that could come up with savings.
Okay.
It's your task, and not an easy one, but it might help fix the problem and give it to us for adopting after you've looked at it.
Do the best I can. All right, Mr. Lampy.
I do want to thank you for that explanation of option B, and obviously I'm a proponent of that, although I don't know that I would bet on its chances with this particular finance committee or council. I do want to go down and circle that 100K of required additional expenses, non-staff expenses though, because I have a feeling even that number is a little too small when we talk about adding in, you know, another entire, at least 5-figure line item for indoor pool expenses, which we haven't been paying for the past 3 years, as well as other increases, and just sort of eyeballing there. If we take like, I think the one thing you keep pointing us to is about 5% of our budget is non-personnel, 75% is personnel. So if we just take that with rough numbers of 20 million of budget, 5 million is non-personnel expenses, 100,000 in there represents about a 2% increase. One of those line items is a good chunk of that increase. We're basically looking at a 1% increase of all non-personnel across the board, which isn't even the rate of inflation these days. So again, I look at that $100,000 and actually think we should use a larger plug in all calculations for that number as we're moving into 2026.
I think he's right.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Move on if there's nothing further then. Okay, we'll move on to F, convene a closed session per Wisconsin statute 19.85 to considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personal problems, or the investigation of charges against specific persons, except where Par B applies, which, if discussed in public, would be likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data or involved in such problems or investigations. FD.
Make a motion.
A motion in a closed session,
Second.
second by Berg. All those in favor say aye.
I think we have to do.
Oh,
roll-
sorry.
Aye.
Aye.
Berg,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
aye. All right, back in open session. 7:35. Okay, last thing on there, I just had to review and discuss public comment at city meetings. I had put public comment on this past meeting here, so general thoughts on leaving it in there or possible other meetings, I guess, that maybe don't have it. Mr. Berg?
Yeah, I asked Robert if he would please have it for a finance committee discussion. I just see the value. I don't see it being any big hardship. I think it reflects well on our board and our council and our committees to have that opportunity for public comment. And I just don't see anything negative in the allowance of it, but it would be, if we were to go along and move it forward, it would be an ordinance type of change eventually, because we are gonna then have to recognize it as part of the agenda for any city type of committees that meet our boards, that they have that chance to make comment. And I'm into, I'm into the appearance of this city being transparent and allowing, encouraging people to come forward where they might be impacted by actions we're taking as a committee or a council. And we just, it's just the right thing to do. And, you know, if it means we have to sit at a meeting an extra 10 minutes, I mean, that's the price we pay for running for the office we're in. And I just don't see the hardship, and the inconvenience will be minor. It'll be occasional, and we're gonna get a lot of kudos and goodwill by people that become aware of this over time. And like Alderman Smith has said before, the insight that we get from people that come to meetings. First of all, if they're there, they're there because they have potentially an issue that's bothering them, and they came to the meeting wanting to know more about it. But also they likely have a vested interest and a direct impact on the proposed change or that we might be contemplating as a committee or as a council. And for them to come and to potentially comment within the guidelines that we give them, I think we can gain insight and awareness that could help us make the best possible decision. And that's why it's a good thing to do. I was on the council many years ago that helped initiate the change in the agenda where we put it in at the end. And I just think it's a small little inconvenience, and it's just, I think it reflects well on our city, and it's the right thing to do. That's why I asked him, and he put it on the agenda for tonight, and sure enough, we had one of our employees come in and chime in with some good comment.
Okay, Mr. Lampy.
So this is a little bit of a learning experience to me, because I was used to, under the previous administration, a little bit of a standardization of agendas. This is basically back when I was sitting in the library board. And one of the things that did come down essentially was standardization of the agendas. Typically that included a comment section and an order and basically the standard format. But looking through the ordinances, sure enough, we have comments defined in common council, but not necessarily a set agenda in ordinance. So if I understand the proposal correctly, we're looking at essentially taking what is common practice on a lot of committees, but not all committees, on the public comment, and then basically making that a standard required part of our city committees by ordinance.
Whatever's going to allow it to become a practice that we do. But I look at meetings each week and see what is on the agenda. And I obviously noticed that some have it and some do not have it. And I just like to standardize that and make it uniform.
Mr. Smith.
I think that is a good idea. I think Alderman Lampy's point about efforts made in the recent past for standardization is extremely good. I think we should take whatever action is necessary to make committee opportunities for public comment identical to the council opportunities. I've been on quite a few different committees. Some have opportunities for the public input. I don't know of any that have opened opportunities at the end of the meeting. In other words, some committees make comment sections available early on, but none at the end. I've also been on committees where there has been very minimal order in proceeding, which is to say, the interpretation of public input is wait till your item comes up and then become an ad hoc member of the city council and just continue to participate throughout the course of the discussion when that agenda item comes up. So what I would be in favor of is making the standardized opportunity for citizens to make comments, just as at the city council at the beginning and at the end, but that the business of the committee continues without interruption during the course of the agenda that is before that committee. That's exactly how it goes with our city council, and I think it would help us. We'd get meaningful insights from citizens. It would be a participatory type of opportunity, and whenever that happens, I think it is well worth the time. And I think that standardization, beginning and end, and not in the midst of the items discussion during the meeting's continuation.
Ms. Davis?
Mr. Smith, are you saying that, for instance, public safety and welfare, typically when the person who has brought the matter to the council, they're usually given permission to explain their concerns when their agenda item comes up? Are you suggesting that we do away with that? When they're not able to participate?
I think
in their
whatever
agenda?
we do should be standardized, and I think it should be noted on the committee agendas. I find that the potential for, especially in controversial issues, when people are in a committee room setting, you have people on both sides. The ability to proceed with good order is diminished, and oftentimes it even opens the opportunities for the two sides to become hostile and competitive. And I have been at meetings where that has happened. We've had controversial issues in front of the city council, and the opportunity to make comments at the beginning or commentary at the end is very helpful. But I can't imagine in some of the controversial issues if all of a sudden anybody that shows up in the audience can be a participant on the ongoing discussion while the council tries to discuss the item, having received the insights that the citizens can bring. So I don't think that's a good idea, but I do think that there's a benefit in standardization. There's nothing that needs to be said that can't be said at the beginning, and then the committee or council continues with its discussion.
Okay. Mr. Lampy?
Mayor, I just wanted to make sure we're looking at the same thing when we're looking at, it looks like we're in 114-7 Common Council Rules of Procedure. That has certain things that govern the Common Council. I think I agree with my colleagues that there's an opportunity to essentially standardize the way that we do business at the committee level. However, I also would have issue if we were fully restricted from inviting people to participate in specific agenda items, especially at the agenda item. So I point to section L3, which talks about the common council in that regard. And it basically, the applicable section here is the presiding officer. And if we were going to take this down to the committee level, I would assume that's whoever is the chair of that. Presiding officer shall decide if comments are relevant, shall have authority to set time limit, and have such authority as may be necessary to efficiently conduct this area of the common council agenda and an order of business. And that's essentially what we see here in common council, which is discretion of the mayor or president, who's guiding the meeting to say, okay, we're looking for some additional comment from a department head or the expert in the area, and you can come on up. And I'd have a very hard time letting go of that at the committee level, because I think that's valuable to have that level of detail. And, fortunately, most of the committees I've been a part of haven't been back and forth controversial
Well,
like that, but that would still preserve the ability for the chair to say, all right, for this meeting, thank you all for coming. All your comments, both sides are at the beginning, and then we as a committee are going to take this back. That continues to preserve the authority of this
Chair.
presiding officer,
Okay.
the chair.
Presiding officer. Sure.
On the public safety. So you missed out on the controversy.
Some of them in the
Yeah,
past.
but
Okay.
I'm confident in my chair to,
So I think
Okay.
what I'm hearing from Jonathan is the benefits of standardization and from Fred. But I think there has to be allowance for the chairperson, presiding officer to use discretion.
Okay.
And with that, I would think that's
Yeah, I
the way
know
it
it-
should be.
Okay, so I think we're kind of agreement on just kind of let every chair decide how they want to run their own meetings. If that's okay, I had citizens ask about the finance, so I'll just keep public comment on finance as is.
That might be just a nice training piece if the chairs met with somebody who says, here's the meeting, here's the agenda, here are your options. You could do it this way, you can do it that way, but it's up to you.
Okay.
I think a training,
Yeah, it's let the
From the
chairs
chair
have the
would be
power,
helpful.
so, okay, we seem in agreement there, I think. I'll
But-
keep our public,
I don't think I quite follow the point you're making then. We talked about it in general as far as being a beneficial type of change that would affect city boards. And again, finance is the most active committee. You want to do it here. But I think the overall point I think I was making, and I thought others, is the value of that concept being integrated into any city board right now that doesn't have it in there, could and should have that same opportunity.
okay,
I think my point was that the standardization should be that each committee includes an opportunity for comment at the beginning and at the end. The kinds of things that Alderperson Davis and Lampy are talking about are moving that forward under the discretion of the chair, which can only enhance flexibility and citizen input. So I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm just concerned about the committees where there is no invitation for people to
Whatsoever,
come
okay.
in and make comments at the beginning, at the end, and to the extent that some committees are more participatory, and I think the example of the Public Safety and Welfare Committee is a good example where it probably would enhance the vitality and the involvement of the citizens contributing at the point of their own individual item. And it seems to me that that's already in the code,
yeah,
the opportunity of discretion for the committee chairperson. But I think what isn't in the code is the standardized ability to have every committee begin their meetings with opportunities for public comment.
okay,
And to do that, I think we have to look at how can we make that built into the agendas of all city boards.
okay. If it's all right, I'll work on it after we get our new
I
city
think it's
attorney.
ordinance. It's an
Yeah,
ordinance.
we're gonna change. So I'll put things on hold until our new attorney starts.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think to close in on a title, I mean, like copy and paste the citizens to be heard section
You know,
across the board might do
Okay.
it.
it's easy. It's,
yeah. Okay,
there's nothing controversial about it.
okay. I'm gonna take a motion to adjourn.
I'll even second that.
Okay, motion by Davis, second by Berg. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, well,
Thank you, buddy.
Good job.